watching or listening to Blood Moon Milk, the astrology show that comes out every new moon and full moon. And this episode is all about the full moon in Scorpio that'll be happening on May 12th, which is a Monday at 12:55 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, Scorpio energy tends to be some of the most intense energy of the entire zodiac. It's deeply emotional, it's passionate, and it above all demands transformation. And full moons in general are a time of the culmination of things coming to a head, things sometimes even seeming larger than life. So these could be things that over the next day or so, as this full moon begins to reach its culmination point, could come up for you, especially if you have personal planets at or near 22 degrees of Scorpio, or in Taurus, just opposite that full moon. I'm going to go ahead and jump right in to sharing my screen, and we'll talk about the full moon and kind of catch up on some stuff. What's going on with the stars? All right, here is the chart for the full moon on May 12th, 2025. The Scorpio full moon, you can see down here, it's at 22 degrees of Scorpio at the bottom of the chart. And it is, of course, directly opposite this sun at 22 degrees, 12 minutes of Taurus. And so one thing that I've noticed with this chart is there's a lot of fixed sign energy coming up for disruption right now between this opposition between the sun and the moon, which both Scorpio and Taurus are signs. We also have Uranus here conjunct the sun, making this an even more unpredictable full moon than normal, because of this tight conjunction between the sun and Uranus. Uranus is very intense energy. It is on or off. It is binary in terms of whether or not it is flowing. But I think of Uranian energy as electricity. It can either flow smoothly and turn things on, and when it's functioning in a system where it's been designed to function on a regular, like predictable basis in a way that we can understand pretty easily, right? Like when we walk into a room and we flip the light switch, that's one way that we can predict the currents to be flowing, and the light comes on and we are illuminated. We can see what we need to see in the room. We turn the light switch off when we leave and it predictably goes off again. But your radiant energy, when it's not being constructively fueled and funneled into a structural system of some sort, can be really erratic and just highly volatile and unpredictable. But it's also the energy of genius. So there really could be these moments of these little epiphanies, these little aha moments during this full moon that, could maybe help us to release some stuff. Scorpio energy tends to have a hard time knowing when to let go of things that have outlived their useful life, or relationships that have outlived their useful life. It can be difficult to know when to tap out if you have a lot of Scorpio placements in your chart. It's passion at its best, but at its worst, it can be really detrimental to your health. So just be aware that this could be a volatile, emotional, dramatic full moon because of this tight conjunction here between the sun and Uranus in Taurus. And the sign of Taurus and Scorpio, the Taurus-Scorpio axis, is about values, it's about passion, but it's also about stability and finding things that will emotionally sustain us and find balance in our lives. through that predictable, steady pace forward, as well as the passion and the drive that fuels Scorpio energy. The predictable kind of steady way forward is the Taurus side of things, of course, but with Uranus there, it's really shaking up that Taurus value system and kind of bringing a lot of attention to what we place values on. And how we go about earning money and finance. It's also the financial axis. And I think if you live in America, you are feeling this probably pretty personally right now. The financial systems are going through just a total upheaval, and as Uranus gets further and further to the end of its journey through the sign of Taurus, that will become more and more volatile. So it'll kind of let up a little bit when it moves into Gemini. Uranian energy loves being in an air sign. But it's just going to get more and more unpredictable in the meantime. So, just hopefully you can have a stomach of steel to be able to kind of understand the volatility and be able to ride those waves and not get overly emotional about financial stuff, because it could be outwardly pretty difficult for a lot of folks. But I think it's also an opportunity to rethink things from a ground up kind of level, right? Like, we don't have to do the things we've always done. We could try to do something new or go about doing things we've always done in a new, novel way. So be open-minded. Try to work with any jolts of inspiration that come to mind over the next couple of days. Take notes, work on projects, and keep your head down and make steady progress forward. And I think you can see real momentum start to build at a certain point. Let's keep going. Let's keep looking at this chart. This is the first time I've sat down with it, so bear with me while I unpack it all and just take it in. So next we've got Mercury. Mercury is at 3 degrees, the sign of Taurus. It's in the 9th house of this chart. So we could be feeling a little bit philosophical about the way we're communicating. But in the sign of Taurus, Mercury tends to have a very measured, predictable pace with the way it communicates. Taurus rules the throat chakra, so there can be extra beauty around words right now, and it's a great time to maybe work and write some poetry or express yourself. Maybe some of those emotions that are bubbling up are inspiration to be expressed in some sort of creative format. It's in a kind of awkward position to this full moon though, so I do think that trying to stay grounded will be really important. I think, especially during this full moon, in a water sign, that it's important to stay grounded so that any emotional swells, if you will, that come up can keep you, like, can wash over you without wrecking you from the inside. So make sure you're spending some time in nature, whether that's just going for a walk in your neighborhood, like admiring the trees and the shrubs around you if you can. There's something about just touching leaves and grass that can really help to soothe the nervous system. And so if you're feeling a little rough around the edges, I know I've been going through it this last couple of days. I have a Scorpio stellium, so this is, and my planets are all kind of right in there. So I feel this personally. It's okay to have intense emotional feelings. You just have to roll with it and to try to learn from them and be a better person because of those kinds of things, versus letting them rule the roost and run your life. So there could be some beautiful opportunities to communicate the way that you feel in a way that connects with other people when they're going through a rough time. So that can be a wonderful silver lining to emotional experience. So just look for opportunities to present themselves everywhere you go, and you'll see them show up. Next, we have Venus, my favorite planet. Venus is at 8 degrees Aries during this full moon. So she's kind of making a harsh angle as well, a similarly harsh angle to the full moon. Um, you know, water signs and fire signs don't always mesh well together. Fire signs can be a little impulsive sometimes for the emotional volatility of water signs, and that like can tend to put fire signs off a little bit. They don't really always like to feel the emotional side of things. So there again could be some friction there between the emotions that we're feeling because of the moon. The moon rules our emotions, but kind of being in conflict with Venus, the planet of love, beauty, romance. It's not my favorite aspect here in terms of love and romance and finances being on display in this full moon. There could be sort of fragile egos and frayed feelings and feelings of disappointment or miscommunication, especially with this harsh angle here with Mercury as well between Mercury and Venus. They're not quite semi-sextile. They're a little too loose for me to really want to count that um, as a beneficial aspect, but there could be opportunities there to have conversations if you look for them. But Venus in Aries, she's impulsive. She wants to take action. She's bold. She doesn't really think about what comes next. She just says what's on her mind and acts with her heart, and that can change really rapidly, which can sort of be at odds with the depth that the Scorpio moon tends to crave. It wants depth and soul level commitment. So this can, make us feel a little, fragile sometimes if we're not really available to come to the table to articulate those emotions. So that could be a theme that is bubbling up for some folks around this full moon. After Venus in Aries at 8 degrees, we have, let's look at Mars over here in Leo. He's at 11 degrees during this full moon in the 12th house of the chart. Now, he's also in a fire sign and he is working pretty well with Venus. He's not quite exactly trine, but it's close enough. Let's count it. He's only 3 degrees away from being perfectly trine. So that's pretty close. Anything under 10 degrees is good. And the closer you get to being exact. So if they were both at 11 or both at 8, they would be exact. But 3 degrees apart is a pretty nice trine configuration here. So that is a nice sign because that's masculine and feminine energy working in a really positive way, even if it's sort of at odds with the emotional state of mind of the Scorpio moon. So not all is what it seems with Mars in the 12th house of the chart during the full moon. So try to remember you don't know the whole story. Mars in Leo, similarly flamboyant, and whereas it's hard on its sleeve, as does Venus in Aries. But again, they can be impulsive and sort of also like Mars and Leo really wants to be appreciated for what it brings to the table. So if it's not feeling rewarded and appreciated in some way, that can also ruffle some feathers and make people feel like they're just not like, what are they in a relationship for if they're not being appreciated for the things that they provide, whether that's emotional stability or, emotional labor, you name it, all relationships are different. Take what resonates for you in your particular situation. But if you are a Leo person with planets at or around 11, 12, 10 degrees of Leo, you're going to be feeling Mars in your energy pretty heavily right now, which can be a good thing. It can energize you and get you motivated for sure, but it can also bring up some serious aggravation and frustration, and it is the warrior planet after all. So you could be feeling that energy sort of budding up inside you and feeling really frustrated, especially because it's we have been experiencing this Pluto-Mars opposition. Pluto is over here at 3 degrees. He's retrograde now, 3 degrees Aquarius. And so when Mars was closer to 3 degrees earlier in the month, we could really sense that that build up of aggravation and authoritarianism and power struggles really sort of taking the stage. But luckily, Mars is moving away from that exactitude of the opposition. So that is, on some level, like winding down a little bit, thankfully. But also, like, back to Pluto and Aquarius going retrograde now, will be retrograde for several months. And so if you recall, he moved into Aquarius last November on November 19th. And so he'll be moving back from that starting point, from 3 degrees back to 0 degrees almost. Let me figure out exactly what degree he'll be retrograding to, because I think that'll be interesting. He'll be retrograde until October 13th, and he'll be direct at 1 degree of Aquarius, which is very powerful energy. 1 degree of any sign's a big deal. So we're going to be going back, revising some things that have been happening since November 19th, and new facts, new power structures, new socio-political things will begin to emerge and revise and take form. Things that maybe were sort of slapdash the first time around can kind of have an opportunity to be thought through again or adjusted so that they work better moving forward, which can be a good thing. So that tension, though, now because of Mars in Leo at 11 degrees, moving forward in the sign of Leo, getting closer and closer to Virgo, which the next fun little Mars thing that'll happen will be when he conjuncts the South Node in Virgo. That could be a pretty interesting time. That doesn't happen super often, but that's not happening during this full moon, so we'll talk about it on another episode. But let's keep going. So we've talked about Mars. Let's look at Jupiter. Jupiter's in Gemini, and he's making some interesting aspects here. So he's at 23 degrees, 47 minutes, the sign of Gemini, and he is making an almost direct square with that South Node in Virgo. Now, when we have a lot of mutable energy in a chart, and we have the nodes in mutable signs, we have Saturn in a mutable sign still, and we have Jupiter in a mutable sign. We really do have a sense that there is change, and that the atmosphere and the environment around us is in a state of flux. And sometimes that can be really uncomfortable to process if you're not okay with making changes. Some people are just naturally more flexible in what they can, deal with than others. So some people really like routines that are very, like, I wake up at this time, I walk the dog at this time, I have my coffee at this time, and their day is very regimented. Other people, however, they thrive on change. So and you can see that in people's charts too. It's funny, people who tend to have more natal planets that are mutable are much more adaptable when it comes to life's fluctuations. People with more fixed energy don't love changes as much. So we have this sort of energetic duopoly here, if you will, between fixed signs who really like rigid, set in stone structures going through upheaval, along with these outer planets and these lunar nodes going through mutable signs and wanting to change things, right? So Jupiter always makes things big when he is making an aspect with a planet or a sensitive point like the nodes. Now, this can tend to blow things out of the water and sort of make a mountain out of a molehill. Like, things that maybe wouldn't be a big deal or shouldn't be a big deal can kind of take on this larger than life quality now. And a square is a difficult aspect. no bones about it. So, and it's almost exact. So there could be things, and I say, you know, it's things from the past, I think, but also things that feel somewhat destined to come along and challenge you in a big way, especially if you have planets at the 23 to 26 degree spectrum, if you will, or range between Gemini and the Pisces Virgo axis, but also down here in Sagittarius as well. So if you have planets at 23 degrees to 26 degrees of Sagittarius, you're going to be feeling Jupiter's opposition to you, which Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So it can make you kind of feel like your own energy and your own vitality is working against you while Jupiter, your ruling planet, is moving in opposition to you in the sign of Gemini. So, you know, just these things are all just food for thought to help you tap into your own energy and your own moods and your own goals. What are the things you want to accomplish? You know, that's the point of astrology, is to be able to systematically check in with yourself. You know, the whole reason I do this podcast is because I believe meditation is an amazing thing. And if we can use astrology with meditation as a tool for mindfulness, for meditation, but also to help manifest just a sense of calm and align your energy with your goals. And just take time to feel the energy, take note of the themes, the thoughts that are running through your head, and to practice a certain amount of grace internally for whatever it is that's coming up, and to let things go that aren't serving us. So, like I said earlier, that Scorpio energy doesn't like to let go of things very easily, but it could be to our benefit now to let go of stuff that isn't helping us any. So, and this nodal axis with the south node in Virgo at 25, 20, almost 26 degrees Virgo, and the north node in Pisces at 25 degrees, this is those nodal positions are the most difficult nodal positions, I think, in astrology. It is so difficult because the South Node in Virgo really wants control. It wants a plan, and that's the comfort zone part of things. And if you see also, like, the South Node here is harmonizing with Uranus up in Taurus at 26 degrees. So it's like even that outer planet Uranus is trying to shake things up in a positive way in that comfort zone to help us get to where we need to be. But we need to, because of the North Node being in Pisces, we have to start trusting our intuition. We have to start trusting our energy levels and the things that light us up from the inside and pique our curiosity, and learn to go with the flow, lean into those changes. That North Node is really close to Saturn still. He's at 28 degrees of Pisces, and Saturn, he's almost done with Pisces energy, which I think will be good for creatives. I know I felt Pisces very profoundly when he moved into the sign of Pisces back in March 7th to 2023 is when he moved into the sign of Pisces. And it was a memorable day for me because my dad passed away the day before. He was a rising Aquarius at 29 degrees, and Saturn was on his ascendant, basically cutting off his life force during that time. So when it was like, you know, that happened, and then Saturn moved into Pisces, which is, you know, Saturn is restrictive, it's karmic, it's putting barriers up in place. But in Pisces, it's doing all of that to our spirituality, to our creativity, to our sense of like divine destiny just flowing and finding our way. But he's almost done in that, and with that energy. He's going to move into Aries, and that'll be a whole new adventure and a whole new ball game for a couple of years. And bringing a lot of wake-up calls to Aries folks. But Pisces, you're going to get a break soon, and then that North Node will be able to work its destiny magic. He's only been in the sign for a little while, or these nodes have only been in the sign for a little while. They moved back in January. So we're just still getting the energy of the Venus or the Virgo Pisces axis with the lunar nodes. So we still have a lot of lessons learned from that particular journey. But this is actually quite beneficial and helpful if we can take responsibility for moving into the structures of Piscean energy and lean into those spiritual practices, that creativity, all that stuff like music, art, all of those are very Piscean themes. So it's a wonderful time to explore all of that stuff, but also to build a lasting practice around those things. That's Saturn's gift here. It's not just putting a damper on things, it is here to teach us structure so that our creative impulses have a life force behind them. So this is the balance we're working with right now during this full moon. Let's see. So who else have we talked? We haven't talked about Neptune yet. So Neptune is at 1 degree of Aries. And honestly, I kind of haven't really felt too much of this energy just yet. I thought it would be a lot more profound when he moved in there, but I am feeling his effects as he's making his way through the early stages, the early degrees of Aries. But I think it's interesting when you know when a planet is moving into a sign and you can be tuned into those subtle thematic energetic shifts that happen along the same time and pick out the resonance of that energy and the vibe of that planet. So he's still early days in Aries, but I do get the sense that he's a bit of a sleeper at the moment, but when his presence is going to be made, it will be made clearly with a very strong ideological bent. When Neptune is in Aries, there tend to be the developments of wars or conflicts, whatever, that have a spiritual perspective of some sort. Whether you want to think of like the Crusades or the Civil War, those are all like Neptune and Aries kinds of vibes. Not saying that Neptune was in Aries the whole time during the Crusades, because that happened for a long time, but that's the kind of energy that Neptune brings to the table while he's in Aries. And so, yeah, those are the planets for this full moon. Just be smart. Take a look at your chart and see where this full moon is hitting. See if you have any personal planets that are at any of the degrees on the screen. It's covering kind of a wide gamut. Everybody's sort of getting hit by something, more or less. I think the only people who aren't like really getting beaten up too bad right now might be Capricorns and Cancers. But Capricorn, like, yeah, it kind of in Cancers both had it for a while with Mars. So there's this sort of breathing period for you all at the moment. But yeah, I mean, like, we'll have those lunar cycles coming up when we have stuff in those signs later this year. I am going to give you all your questions for mindfulness, meditation, and manifestation to help during your full moon practices. So let's start with Aries rising. This full moon will be in the 8th house for you. The 8th house is ruled by Scorpio, of course, which is all about transformation and intimacy. So there could be fears or emotional patterns that might bubble up for you. So ask yourself which ones you're ready to release to be able to deepen and strengthen your connections with the relationships in your life. Ask yourself how you could maybe embrace vulnerability to transform your relationships as well. For the Taurus rising folks out there, this full moon will be in your 7th house of partnerships. So with partnerships, honesty and transparency is really important. Ask yourself what truths need to be acknowledged in your closest relationships. Are there any secrets that are being kept? Scorpio is an incredibly secretive sign, after all. So there might need to be some conversations about hunches or suspicions you might have. Get that stuff out in the light. Talk about it, deal with it. It's better than hiding from it and waiting for it to fix itself. That just is not a great strategy. So if this full moon is, rather, if you're a Gemini rising, this full moon will happen in your sixth house, which is your house of health and daily routines. It's also your house of job, not necessarily career, but the job you do to kind of get by, make ends meet kind of a job. So ask yourself which daily habits might not serve your well-being anymore. And that could be your health, that could be your job, that could be just, your exercise routine. What's working, what's not working? And ask yourself how you can make better routines that can support your emotional and physical health. Because with this moon here, it could kind of exacerbate things. There could be health issues for you here if you're a Gemini rising. So make sure that you're taking care of your body so that you can really be of service, not just to yourself, but to your community too. If you're a Cancer rising, this full moon will be in your fifth house, the house of creativity and pleasure. So this is a great opportunity to explore what you creatively express, and maybe also ask yourself what you're not really totally comfortable expressing. Are you comfortable being vulnerable? I know that's a difficult thing for me sometimes. But also ask yourself how you can allow more joy and more spontaneity into your life here, because it could be a beautiful time for things to come in if you just have an open mind right now. If you're a Leo rising, this full moon would be in your fourth house, the house of home and family. It's also the house representative of your mother. Ask yourself if you have any emotional baggage from the past that you're ready to let go of. I think we all have emotional baggage, and we can choose to set it aside for a little while and just not give it the energy to run the mind and to ruin the mood. You can just say thank you very much and put it aside and focus on other things for a little while. That can be incredibly healing. Also ask yourself how you can create a nurturing and secure home environment. There could be some sort of issue that comes up during this full moon if you're a Leo rising because of where this moon is in your chart. So there might be something that you have to fix at your home. If you're a Virgo rising, this full moon would be in your third house, which is the house of communications and thought patterns. So try to examine your thoughts a little bit. Be aware of the thoughts that are on repeat in your head, and maybe ask yourself if it's really true. Is this a story I'm telling myself? Is this something I really get anything positive out of by telling myself over and over again? Or is there another better story you want to hear? And take control of those thoughts, adjust as appropriate to you, and accept that you had that thought pattern, but you'd like to change it and make some steps in that direction. And also ask yourself how you can communicate more authentically and openly. Scorpio energy can have us feeling very emotional, and emotions, sometimes you don't always get a choice about how you express your emotions. They kind of just come out sometimes. And that's totally authentic and can be beautiful to see, but it can hurt, it can be painful, it can be scary. So, just examine what comes up for you. It'll be different for everybody. If you're a Libra rising, this full moon will be in your second house. This is the house of values and self-worth. So ask yourself about the beliefs and any self-worth and identity issues you might have surrounding your sense of self-worth. I know a big one for me used to be my job. I identified as whatever it was I was doing for employment at the time, and that gave me a sense of identity and ego. But it was also not who I am. You know, I am so much more than whatever job I've ever had. I'm more than a TV producer. I'm more than a writer. I'm more than an astrologer. You're a sum of all of those things. So if you're a Libra rising, just ask yourself, you know, what beliefs you have about your self-esteem and your self-worth might be on repeat, and things that you're ready to release around that, if there's something that is negative that's coming up for you. And also ask yourself how you can align and maybe reassign some resources to really strengthen those true core values that you do have. Just like really reinforce that. If you're a Scorpio rising, well, buckle up. This will be in your first house, your house of identity and self-image. So just ask yourself what aspects of your identity you might have outgrown. There could be things that you loved once upon a time. Maybe there's clothes in the closet that made sense for you at one point in time, but now they just don't really fit with who you are evolving into. So it could be a good time to maybe make some room in the closet so you can go shopping and put things that are more authentically reflective of who you are now. And ask yourself how you can embrace transformation to become your most authentic self during this full moon. If you're a Sagittarius rising, this full moon will be in the 12th house, the house of the subconscious and the sector of spirituality. So if you have hidden fears or subconscious patterns that might be bubbling up, or because there's some kind of issue with, you know, during this full moon that's likely to come up, something will rear its head, and you can catch it and you can say, okay, how is this related to something else? Do I need to maybe think about going to therapy? Do I need to talk to somebody or seek professional help about this stuff to help, you know, deprogram anything that could be problematic? Also, maybe reflect on how you can deepen your own personal spiritual connection and trust in the universe and the unknown. That's a big one right now with that Pisces Virgo nodal axis theme, is trusting that the universe is here to support us, even in spite of outward appearances and the 3D reality sometimes. If you're a Capricorn rising, this full moon will be in your 11th house, the house of community, aspirations, and wishes come true. So ask yourself which social connections might not be so aligned with who you want to grow into. Are there groups of people that you maybe need to step away from, or some aspect of your social life that just isn't feeling like it's in a flow state? There needs to be some focus on how to adjust that maybe during this full moon. So ask yourself how you can align your goals with your true passions. If you're looking to figure out a way to adjust that communities and social connection aspect, focus on your goals and then think about things you can do towards your goals, and maybe meet new people who are better connected socially, who can help you meet your goals, and you can maybe find your people, you know? And so if you're an Aquarius rising, this full moon will be in your 10th house, the career and public life sector of chart. So there could be themes coming up around your professional roles, your job. So ask yourself, what might not be fulfilling any longer? Is there something that's outlived its usefulness in terms of your career, or something that needs to be transformed in some way? Because Scorpio really is all about transformation, rebirth, and death, that sort of phoenix life cycle. So it's a great time to, you know, tear that thing down and reimagine it. And Aquarius risings are excellent at reinvention because, of course, they are ruled by the planet Uranus. So how can you pursue a career path that really aligns with that true trailblazing Aquarius rising self? Last but certainly not least, we have Pisces rising. This full moon will be in your 9th house, the house of beliefs and higher learning. So there could be issues that come up because of this full moon or around the time of this full moon that could be limiting your beliefs, like, or your beliefs could be limiting your perspective of the world in some way. How can you transform beliefs that you've held for a long time and really reflect on if that's accurate, if those beliefs are true, if they can be backed up by science, or it's just, somebody you grew up with told you this was true, but you never looked into it. Just examine that stuff, then do your own research and your own soul searching. And then, lastly, ask yourself how you can expand your horizons and embrace new philosophies that really do align with the beliefs and or possibly education. Are you ready to go pursue a higher degree of some sort, or maybe there's a certification you want to go take? This could be a good time to sign up for those kinds of things if you are a Pisces rising. Now, I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, so I'm going to cut it short. But thank you, as always, for listening to the show.